very honored to share the joint research center work on decoding depression and how it can integrate with Feldenkrais practice to activate resilience, agency, and nervous system recovery across life course. Because the Decoding Depression Science for Policy initiative recognizes depression as an environome-driven condition shaped by your personal, your social, your natural, your built, and your digital environment. The Feldenkrais Method enriches this framework by addressing the somatic environment, using movement, neuroplasticity, and body awareness to support self-regulation, anxiety reduction, and healthier brain-body patterns. So integrating Feldenkrais into prevention and recovery aligns with One Health, mental health preparedness, and life course resilience, since it provides an empowering, accessible for everybody, evidence-informed tool and method that bridges science, policy, and lived experience. And so together, environome insights and Feldenkrais practice offer a kind of holistic pathway for strengthening Europe's but also global mental health systems. So in the time allocated, I will show you a part of our work. Just to give a short background, I'm a Belgian biotechnology STEM engineer with a PhD in medicine and pharmacy. And I've always been fascinated by the world of science and its potential to improve not only human but also animal health and the environment. So my passionate pursuit of science is really a bit written down here to really, let's say, with my work, tackling overall emerging health threats in a One Health framework, which recognizes the interconnectedness of human, animal, and environmental health. Obviously, in my work, collaboration has been always globally, and it has been driven by innovation to make this positive impact, but also embracing by this diversity, equity, inclusions, and improving the life of others by our science for policy work, but also by some volunteering activities. So our JRC Decoding Depression tackles how we can extend our transdisciplinary knowledge, I would say, on adverse outcome pathways to depression and understand well the mechanism related to this to an integrative, holistic One Health approach. So one of the questions that I want to share with you, which was also asked to me to reply, is how can somatic disciplines contribute to understanding and addressing depression and related conditions when viewed through an environnomic and life course perspective? Well, I can say that somatic practices such as the Feldenkrais Method operate at this intersection of body awareness, behavior, stress regulation, and also social contexts, all of which are core components of the so-called depression environome. Remember, depression environome is the social, the personal, the natural, the built, and also the digital environmental factors. So they may influence protective and risk factors for depression, including chronic stress, pain, fatigue, reduced mobility, social withdrawal, and diminished self-efficacy. So from a policy perspective, these practices are relevant very much as preventive, supportive, and complementary approaches, of course, rather than only standalone clinical treatments. Now, what we are doing in overall, and I go quickly through that to understand a little bit more about European Commission Joint Research Centre. Actually, our work overall in many disciplines is to provide independent, evidence-based knowledge and science supporting EU but also global policies to positively impact society. And we are organized in 25 portfolios. And especially our portfolio is dealing with societal resilience, systemic disruptive events, and risk. And we try to enhance by anticipation, preparedness, and response overall global resilience. So, of course, our work was a response, an EU response to this document, a comprehensive approach to mental health, which has been issued in 2023. So, answering also to this question, how does the European Commission Joint Research Centre support research approach complex, non-linear health phenomena, such as depression, chronic pain, and fibromyalgia? Well, overall, our research addresses complex systems, combining, for instance, biomedical, behavioral, environmental, socioeconomic data. And in the context of depression, comorbidities such as chronic pain and fibromyalgia are highly relevant as they significantly increase the risk and severity of depressive disorders. Challenges related to evidence generation for somatic disciplines reflect broader issues in mental health research. For instance, difficulty in standardizing intervention. There is really this environmental context dependency, and also the need of really a lot of mixed methods evidence, from quantitative to qualitative, and real-world data and lived experience. So what we see in our work is that health in our preparedness work has a lot of cascading effects. Some of them are depicted because there is a link with, for instance, natural disasters, economic crisis, healthcare resources, healthcare infrastructure, and more than ever now also conflicts, climate change. So we're operating in quite a complex context. I show to you now this video, which shows a little bit the project we have been working on. So this video showed a bit the process, and important now for this audience is that we know, for instance, depression is really complex and multifaceted disorder, and it affects really millions of people, but many treatments focus on quick fixes like medication, and it ignores a bit the underlying environmental complexity. And you see a lot of comorbidities occurring. And what I also see now, this is a publication on the left side, is that a meta-analysis with almost 400 studies with lots of individuals. You see almost 350,000 individuals with chronic pain from 20 countries. They showed a very close link with depression and anxiety. So obviously the information that I was saying before is highly relevant. Now, clearly, I already introduced it. What we want to do is take a One Health approach to depression. And this is a document, which was recently issued to really deal with an approach that connects all this interconnected world. And this is what we exactly did for depression. So therefore, there is, in this One Health context, really a very important role of multidisciplinary, even better, transdisciplinary integration in improving mental health, depression prevention and care. And that's exactly what we try to do. We explicitly explored integration across sectors, and somatic practitioners can be considered in this context part of the broader ecosystem of mental health support, particularly in prevention, rehabilitation, and long-term condition management. So the key challenge is not professional recognition per se, but it's defining the interfaces, quality criteria, and appropriate use contexts that are meaningful for policymakers and health system. So here you see the report, and the material will be distributed, but already in the report I acknowledged already Feldenkrais community of their, let's say, importance in what I just highlighted in prevention and treatment. In the report, you can also look at how macro, meso, and micro level factors impact mental health policies and their integration with all society interventions we're talking about. Other aspects, of course, to this dossier is really recognizing very early in life, but also across life course, depression symptoms, and within the report you can find that. We also have lots of dissemination material, which you find here on the QR codes. And here on this slide, you see, in a nutshell, the key concept of understanding depression, which is really a dynamic interplay of personal, social, natural, and built environments. So on the 23rd of June, 2025, in Brussels, in the EU Policy Lab, we did a workshop, Decoding Depression and Future's Garden, where we brought a lot of experts together, very transdisciplinary, neuropsychiatrists, psychologists, artists, lived experienced experts, people from different policy DGs, people across different age levels. And there we started together to look at the environome and also to design together care policies. So within that context, it's also obviously important to understand what types of research are still needed to, for instance, to assess the contribution of somatic disciplines to the environome-driven depression and mental health conditions. So here a few suggestions. So longitudinal and life course studies linking somatic practices to mental health outcomes, including effects on the depression adverse outcome pathway. Also research on mechanism of action, including, for instance, links to stress regulation, interoception, and body-mind feedback loops. Evaluation of the implementation contexts, such as primary care, workplace prevention, the effect of social prescribing, like Feldenkrais practice. This is also done already on walks in nature, and community-based mental health initiatives, and use of participatory and co-creation approaches aligned with specific methodologies, including, for instance, best practices to capture lived experience alongside clinical indicators. Now, what we are doing about additional need of research data is really collecting and trying to collect a huge data pool by launching a survey which is aimed to increasing awareness and decoding depression together. This survey has as goal to understand how people find, evaluate, and use information, especially about depression, and how social, digital, and environmental factors influence these behaviors. The purpose of this survey, which we hope that the whole Feldenkrais community, practitioners, and those that are part of the Feldenkrais community will fill in, this is aiming to inform our scientific research and shape really inclusive, evidence-based mental health and communication strategies across the EU and globally. So to better understand the survey and how you all gratefully would fill it in, there is a short video which explains why we are doing it and how to fill in the survey.
1 out of 5 people in the European Union has experienced some depression symptoms. Also at a global scale, it's everywhere, yet still hard to study. But it's time to take action. I'm Sandra, I work for the European Commission. Together with my team, we just launched Decoding Depression. It's an initiative to bring science, society, and policymakers closer and create care policies that truly reflect people's needs. We organize workshops and events and share our work at international conferences. We promote the concept of environome, how personal, social, natural, and built environment shapes mental health across life. Through a One Health lens, we link human, animal, and environmental well-being to fight depression and strengthen resilience. But how can we get your experience into our workflow? We created a Decoding Depression survey. Let's go through it together. In the first 2 sections, some information and demographic questions. Don't worry, everything is completely anonymized. Next, we'll ask about how you consume information, especially depression-related ones, followed by barriers and challenges you may have faced. And finally, there are a few short questions about the environome and optionally on neurodiversity. My team and I are working hard to advocate for care-centered policies, but with your input into the survey, you can. 1 out of 5 people in the European Union has experienced some depression symptoms. Also at a global scale, it's everywhere, yet still hard to study.
So after this short video, how to fill in the survey, really hope all of those that here are listed amongst many others, we all hope that you will contribute to this survey to increase awareness on decoding depression, and also there trying to link, for instance, the approaches that you have been following with our depression survey outcome research data to really give ideas of what can be the new care policies and how they should be governed in the EU and across the globe. So I'm part also of a community where we deal with children that are victims of complex trauma, Il Pezzettino. You find the webpage here. And the work that I presented here is also linked to some of these lived experiences by working with these communities. And one of the things I want to share with you is that transferring our scientific knowledge as scientists to help those in society is really so important. So in my case, the cure is related to current scientific knowledge on depression science, disruptive event, complex trauma in children, adolescents, adults, but also elderly people, and how science can help. So being social scientific ambassadors can make a critical contribution to this planet, its people, and its animals for the next generation to come. So last but not least, I want to thank you all from the Feldenkrais community for starting this journey stronger and growing together. And I really think that the Science for Policy initiative recognize this depression as an environome-driven condition shaped by biological, social, psychological, and physical environments, including the concept of the environome, so the personal, social, natural, built, and digital environments. The Feldenkrais method really enriches this framework by addressing the somatic environment, using movement, neuroplasticity, and body awareness to support self-regulation, anxiety reduction, and healthier brains, body patterns. So integrating Feldenkrais into prevention and recovery aligns with really this One Health framework. And it also linked to our work on mental health preparedness and life course resilience. And it really provides an empowering, accessible, evidence-based tool or framework that bridges science, policies, and experience. Thank you all for listening, and to be continued.